Hey everyone, my name is Matt. I am a librarian, a local historian, and housing activist in Kalamazoo. And this video is sort of inspired by someone I'm friends with on Facebook. I don't know the person, and I will call you. But I've been thinking a lot about why a Republican would be in favor of reparations to either black Kalamazooans or black Americans in general. And just to be clear, I never vote Republican, so I hope I come off as empathetic and like I'm actually trying to think as a Republican and think about the history of the Republican Party. And I think about a lot of things. And second of all, let's clear the air. Black people vote for the Democratic Party today. That's just not a mystery at all. So let's just be clear about that as well. But I think about a lot of things. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. He signed the Emancipation Proclamation. A lot of people were behind him to do that. But when I think about that, I think about, as if I'm thinking like a Republican, he only did half the job, right? He emancipated the slaves without any remedy. People asked the newly freed enslaved people what they needed, and they very modestly asked, 40 acres and a meal. They didn't get it. Abraham Lincoln only did half that job. They didn't get 40 acres and a meal, and that's all they asked for. They wanted to be away from white people. They wanted to basically earn the American dream. They wanted to work their own land, and they wanted to make it up, and maybe they'd integrate later when white people weren't so violent. So if I'm thinking like a Republican, reparations is that second part, is the work that Abe didn't finish. All these years later. And let's be clear, reparations should not be a party-driven thing. It should be either apolitical or bipartisan. Both parties have unimaginable amounts of reparations to pay to black Americans. Let's just be clear. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party have harmed black Americans in ways we cannot imagine. I mean, let's just think of mass incarceration. Mass incarceration started with a Democrat, Lyndon Baines Johnson. Some of his, we like to think of the war on poverty, what he called that, right? But he also started the war on crime. He started the beginning policies and the structures and the funding structures for what would be called mass incarceration. That happened. Now, the Republican administrations after them went on overdrive with those policies, right? They declared war on black neighborhoods and incarcerated black men at rates the world has never seen. So we're talking Nixon and Reagan, right? Using thinly veiled anti-black racial stereotypes. So both parties owe incredible amount of reparations. Think of the wealth disparity, right? Redlining. That starts with FDR, right? One of the so-called best presidents, right? So I'm saying the Democrats and the Republicans this shouldn't be a party issue. But anyway, when I'm thinking like a Republican, I'm also thinking about how, I'm thinking of 53 years ago, I think 1968 or 1969. This is a local example. Two men, they were probably Democrats, two men that were the head of a black man and a white man. They were the head of what was called CalCap, but it was really, they were the head of the local War on Poverty program. War on Poverty came from LBJ, Democrat. And they were resigning. That's significant. And again, I'm talking to my Republican friends. That is significant. They had to resign from that because it was too much, too paternalistic, too bureaucratic, not funded. Right? It's this theme of like paternalistic, complex democratic policies pretending or aiming to help, for example, black folks, but not really delivering. At the end of the day, not delivering. And these two men issued this joint statement. They resigned from CalCap, the War on Poverty program, and they issued this joint statement that was basically a statement of reparations. They said, if the millionaires and philanthropists and city leaders of Kalamazoo want to actually help black people, they should give significant sums of money to them, no strings attached. That's a great definition of reparations from people who were quitting the so-called democratic war on poverty, right? So there's no paternalism with reparations. It's not complex. Give me the money, give me the amount. What's the amount? I know there's more to reparations. It's a transformation. It's not just about money, but what's the money? Who's it for? That's pretty obvious. It's not complicated. It's simple. Okay, who's going to lead it? Oh, black people? Okay, great. And there's this self-determination involved in reparations, which is also a thread of the Republican Party's history, right? I can't think, I don't know if it was Reagan or Nixon, but they talked a lot about black self-determination. Now, I think that was mostly rhetoric and it didn't actually happen, right? But that's this thread in the party's history. And finally, when I think of a lot of Republicans, I think of this impulse to like really not want to talk about race anymore, to be colorblind. Why can't we go over this? Didn't the civil rights solve all these problems? Blah, blah, blah. None of that's true, but if you really want to move towards colorblindness, if you really hate talking about race so much, that's a great reason to back reparations. Now, going through a reparations transformation is not going to solve all racial problems. But what I'm saying is if you want to take a step in that direction, then that's a great reason to back reparations. You know what it's about. It's not complicated. It's simple. Show me the amount. What's it going to do? What disparities is it going to reduce so that we're actually on a level playing field for once in American history in 402 years? And my final thought on this is I was at some public event. I forgot what it was, but a black woman said something really cool. And she basically said, I'm paraphrasing, she said, the Democratic Party will promise black Americans all sorts of things and never deliver, right? Whereas the Republican Party will actually tell you exactly what they're going to do. And I think she's basically right. Like, Democrats constantly overpromise. Think of Kalamazoo. It's a liberal-run city, right? So-called. The promises are outstanding. We're going to eliminate generational poverty in Kalamazoo. We are gonna, we're gonna share prosperity. If I'm thinking like a Republican, I'm saying bullshit. You haven't done any of that. All you do is promise stuff, right? So again, reparations, there's none of that. It's very direct, it's very specific, it's very aimed at like actually addressing the root cause solution. It's not going to solve everything, obviously, but yeah, so I'll end on that.